Francis was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina on December 17, 1936. Bergoglio had 4 siblings. As a young man, he had part of his lungs removed because of an infection. After earning a secondary school degree as a chemical technician, Bergoglio felt a call to the priesthood as a Jesuit, joining the novitiate in 1958 at the age of 22. He was ordained a priest on December 13, 1969. In 1973, he made his perpetual vows in the Society of Jesus, and the same year was elected Jesuit provincial for Argentina. He would go on to serve as a seminary rector, a priest, a professor, and a spiritual director. He became a bishop in 1992 and Archbishop of Buenos Aires in 1998. 3 years later, in February 2001, he was elevated to cardinal by Pope John Paul II and named the cardinal priest of St. Roberto Bellarmino. As Archbishop, he was known for his humble demeanor. He stayed in a modest apartment and took public transit. He also showed a special regard for the poor, whom he frequently visited. As a cardinal, his sermons always had an impact in Argentina, and he often stressed social inclusion, indirectly criticizing governments that did not pay attention to those on the margins of society. He also served as president of the Bishops' Conference of Argentina from 2005 until 2011. At the 2005 conclave, he was seen as a contender for the papacy. Following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI on March 13, 2013, Bergoglio was elected at the papacy at the age of 76. He was the first Jesuit and the first Latin American to become Pope. He chose Francis as his papal name in honor of St. Francis of Assisi and became the first non-European Pope in 1300 years. The early months of the Francis papacy included several surprises, amplified by social media coverage, which helped build his anticipated popularity. On the night of his election, he took a bus back to his hotel with the cardinals rather than being driven in the papal car. He also insisted on settling his bill at a hotel for clergy. Immediately stamping his style on the papacy, he went ahead to abandon the luxurious papal accommodations in the Vatican's Apostolic Palace in favor of a simple 2-room apartment. In choosing to live more simply, Pope Francis broke a tradition that had been upheld by popes for more than a century. Throughout his public life, Francis had been noted for his humility, emphasis on God's mercy, international visibility as Pope, concern for the poor, and commitment to interreligious dialogue. Francis was more vocal about politics than his predecessors and moved to make the Catholic Church more open. But his willingness to take on issues head-on created a growing number of opponents, both within the Vatican and outside. His decision to crack down on church corruption and excommunicate members of the mafia were hailed by Catholics and non-Catholics alike, though they also caused him to receive death threats. He also did not flinch at replacing cardinals with whom he doesn't see eye to eye. For decades, the Catholic Church has been plagued by a series of sex abuse scandals in countries around the world. While the Holy Father was criticized for some of his actions, such as when he defended a Chilean bishop accused of covering up a sex scandal in 2018, a decision he later described as a grave error, he took a firm stance on the issues and introduced some reforms. In 2019, he abolished Vatican secrecy rules for cases of sexual abuse and put in place new rules that made it mandatory for the first time for all dioceses to set up systems for reporting abuse and cover-ups. The Pope was, however, criticized by conservative sectors of the Church who are opposed to reforms such as giving women and lay Catholics more roles and making the Church more welcoming and less judgmental towards some, including LGBTQ people. He once stated that while blessings of same-sex unions are not permitted, the individuals can be blessed as long as blessings are not given in a liturgical context. In his 11 near tenure as the head of the Church, the pontiff raised eyebrows by suggesting that even atheists could go to heaven, as well as taking a softer stance on abortion and remarriage. He called on the Catholic Church to be more open to divorced and remarried people and to avoid treating them as excommunicated. On January 19, 2015, Francis, while firmly upholding church teaching banning contraception, said Catholics don't have to breed like rabbits and should instead practice responsible parenting. He widely denounced the death penalty as intrinsically evil, stating the Catholic Church is committed to its abolition. Francis once criticized couples who choose to have pets rather than children, saying the decision is a selfish act. Under his pontificate, he was deeply involved in political and environmental issues, including climate change and social justice. He spoke out against global abuses and the misuse of political and economic power, lamenting the disappearances and suspected murders of 43 students in Mexico and the dangers and losses of life caused by immigration. The 88-year-old pontiff had been outspoken in condemning the violence unfolding in Gaza, saying Israel and Palestinian authorities should work toward a two-state solution with international support. The Pope also tackled other political blockades too, bringing together Cuban President Raul Castro and US President Barack Obama in a historic meeting that precipitated significant foreign policy changes. Pope Francis also acknowledged that he made mistakes during his pontificate, usually because of his impatience, but he defended some of his most controversial decisions. In 2022, he apologized for the church's role in the cultural genocide of the Canadian Indigenous peoples. Pope Francis was named one of Times magazine's 100 most influential people in 2019. He was also named Time magazine's Persons of the Year in 2013. With the release of a new autobiography titled Hope, Francis underlines this shift with a remarkable openness about his past mistakes and wrongdoings. The memoir covers major events in the Francis papacy. It also addresses the crisis facing today's world. The new autobiography underlines that Francis remains a pope who had a voice that can connect with people beyond the institution of the Catholic Church. In the first 7 years of his pontificate, the Pope made over 30 international trips and visited more than 45 countries, including a visit to Kenya. Pope Francis visited Kenya from 25th to 27th November 2015. It was his first state and pastoral visit to the country and the continent of Africa at large. In his visit, he met various leaders, held meetings with various members of the clergy, and held an open mass at the University of Nairobi. He later visited a poor slum neighborhood of Kangemi. Francis became the second pontiff to visit Kenya after John Paul II, who visited Kenya 3 times. The pontiff canonized a number of saints, among them his predecessors, John Paul II. Francis has been hospitalized for various health conditions in recent years. In 2023, he underwent hernia surgery in June and spent 3 days in hospital. He has been prone to bouts of influenza and bronchitis during winter. The pontiff has publicly used a wheelchair since 2022, initially due to a persistent knee pain, which required an operation. These health scares had raised concerns about the state of the Pope's well-being. In 2021, the Pope's health problems prompted rumors that he might resign, which Francis dismissed. The Pope was first admitted to a clinic in Rome on February 14th, undergoing tests for a respiratory tract infection. While the Pope was physically frail, he remained spiritually and psychologically resilient, and since his hospitalization, he had shown that he wanted to fight on. Rose Wangui, NTV.